tuned in to the Politics Podcast, your home for St. Louis politics. What's going on, St. Louis? Welcome back to the Politics Podcast. I am your host, Terry Wilson. We got a good show. I know I say that every week because I believe in my show, and I believe that every show is a good show. So we have a wonderful guest coming in today. We're going to talk a little bit to a state senator from the city of St. Louis. And he has a very interesting story. I mean, he does a whole lot. I'm gonna let him talk about himself, but he's done and accomplished so much as a young man. I believe that he is an attorney. He not only serves his community as an elected official, but he serves his country as a captain in the reserves. So we're going to bring on our guest. I'm so glad to have joined with us today, Senator Steve Roberts.
Hey, great to see you. I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Man, it's so good to see you, and I'm glad that you were able to join the Politics Podcast. We appreciate you joining in. And before we get started, I want to remind my audience that you could catch us out on Podbean, 88.1 The Truth Internet Radio. You can catch us on Apple Podcasts. You can catch us on Pandora, Amazon Music, Spotify, and right here on YouTube and Facebook Live. So there's no excuse for you to say you don't know where the Politics Podcast is. So what's going on, Steve?
Oh, I'm doing well. You know, excited finally that session's over. Can take a little bit of a breather, although I expect us to be back in the next couple of weeks for a special session. As you know, in that last minute, we weren't able to pass a clean FRA. So we'll have to get that done, or we're going to lose, close to $2 billion in federal funding.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we're going to get into that a little bit. So Steve, let my audience know who Steve Roberts is. Only you could tell the world who Steve Roberts nobody could tell their story like the person's whose story it is. And like I was bragging on you earlier, it's impressive, man, to see such a young man doing so much in such a short time. Because you're about what, 33?
33, you got it. Yeah. Exactly.
33. Yeah. So you went to Whitfield High School.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went to Miami.
Yeah, the U.
You went to you went to the U.
Games.
Yeah,
that's right.
And then you went to Pepperdine
for law school. You got it.
To Pepperdine for law school, and then you joined the military, right?
Yep. Yeah. When I was serving as a state rep, I joined.
And so go right ahead.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been an interesting journey. I'll try to give you my 30-second life summary. But right, you nailed it. So, at Pepperdine, that's really where I developed the passion for criminal justice reform. I was able to work for the Compton District Attorney's Office there. And then I also worked at a clinic in downtown LA where we were able to help folks fleeing persecution in their home countries. They're trying to get asylum here in the US. And so what's really neat in law school, when you're in immigration court, you can do things that you can't do until you're barred typically. So you can actually appear and help folks out when you're in immigration court before you actually have your law license. So it was kind of through those experiences I really developed a passion for public service. But, right after law school, I was hired by a private equity company down in La Jolla, California. So just north of San Diego. And it was a good job. I was with a great team, but I just wasn't really passionate about the work. I really wanted to get back into the courtroom and develop those litigation skills. So I ended up quitting that job, had my salary more than cut in half to come back to the city of St. Louis to work as a prosecutor. And, I really felt like, I was there just over a year, and my experience in California was very different from what I experienced in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. I remember my first day doing in Division 22, when you're doing arraignments and things like that. And basically I would see as young folks, people who look like me, lined up, chained together like cattle in orange jumpsuits. Yeah. And, in the city of St. Louis, it was just that I felt like there was a real lack of compassion. It's with a lot of folks, you really got to decide. I saw this in Compton. Is there's like, is this a bad person? Is this person danger to society, or is this just a young person who did something stupid? Who if we put him in diversion, drug treatment, could get his life back on track. So I was there just over a year on our felony armed offender unit prosecuting gun crimes when I felt I could make more of a difference at the policy level. So me and Kimberly Gardner, actually, she was my predecessor in the House. So she was running for circuit attorney at the same time I was running for state representative. We both won our elections, and she's been leading the way in the city of St. Louis on a lot of those reforms, decriminalizing these drug offenses. And I've been trying to champion legislation dealing that at the state level as well. So we've made a really great team. I served in the House for 4 years. My last 2, I was honored to be a chairman of the Black Caucus, where I really focused on criminal justice reform, women's rights, economic empowerment, things like that. And, really honored that the citizens of the 5th District, they just elected me to serve. So I just, as you mentioned, completed my first term and also had the privilege of serving as the Democratic whip from the minority party. So really glad to continue in leadership roles and fight for the citizens of Missouri.
Man, you got an impressive resume of service, man. And, that was one thing I wanted to ask you, man. Where did you get where did you get the inspiration to want to serve? Because I mean, you could have decided to do anything, with your background and your family legacy and everything. You could have done anything, man. But you chose service, and that's admirable. And it seems like you enjoy doing what you do because you're still doing it. You served in the House, and now you're a senator now. So kind of talk to us about where did that passion, where did that service itch come from? Because you, like I told the audience earlier, you're not just serving the community, you serving the country, man. You raised your hand and said, you know what, I want to sign up for the military as well, and you're assuming leadership there because you're a captain. So
yes, sir. Honored to do it.
Yeah. So kind of talk to us a little bit about where that came from.
I think, it's just something, I don't know if it was just instilled to me, as a kid. My mother, she's a doctor. So just, a healer, internal medicine. I remember I'd go to her office and things like that, and just had a great deal of respect and pride in what she did. And, she was at a time, when she went to medical school, it was a time when, women weren't really becoming doctors, especially Black women. So for her to really excel and thrive in that, I think was a huge impact on me and my father as well. He served on the board of aldermen for several years, and just kind of constant theme. And that's why, with my office, one of the things that's most important to me is our constituent services. We try to get back to everyone. We do a pretty good job within 24 hours. So, if you call our office, shoot us an email, if we can't help you, we'll connect you with the person who can. So, for me, it's those little things. The legislation part is fantastic, but being able to help someone where it's like, you've got an inmate who, they need a fan and they're not, they're having difficulty seeing their family members, things like that. Someone who's had their AC cut off in the winter or heat in the summer, being able to connect them to the right resources, and that's really what I find most rewarding. That really just that individual one-on-one being in the position to help folks. And I think that's a reward in itself.
And see, that's a commonality that you and I both have, man. A lot of people think, elected officials, all we do is just pass laws and stuff like that. But I really get my joy out of being in position of influence to help people outside of just passing laws. Like, we're in positions where, we can make calls to help certain people, man, that might not, have had that opportunity had it not been for somebody in their corner standing up for them, being their advocate, man. So that's one thing that I really enjoy. I enjoy the service part of being an elected official because all the other stuff that comes, but the good elected officials, the ones that people remember, are the ones that went above and beyond outside of just passing the laws and showing up at the meetings and going home. Because I remember when the pandemic first hit, I saw that you hit the ground running, man. You did a couple of partnerships to do some testing sites and vaccine, and you've done food drives and everything that goes along with it. And so we haven't even seen. So
We were doing right when the beginning of the pandemic, there was very scarce resources, especially for folks getting tested. Everyone was struggling to get testing, and I was looking because the state published this data. One of the most devastating areas that was hit by it was the 63113 zip code. Just that Kings Highway stretch north St. Louis, and it was particularly devastated by the virus, and there were no testing sites in the zip code. There was not a single one. So, we were able to utilize the Victor Roberts building. I was able to work with Dr. Kendra Holmes with Affinia Healthcare. Their nursing staff was fantastic. So just through our relationship, we were able to set a weekly location. And we were one of the sites where you didn't need to have symptoms. You didn't need to have insurance. It was totally free. You show up and we would make sure you'd get taken care of, get tested, because for me, my greatest fear, and I think for a lot of young folks also, is you've got it, you're asymptomatic, and you unwittingly pass it to someone who's got an underlying condition who might be then put in a life-threatening situation. So to get ahead of it, and we were able to track the data, how cases were going down in the city, but you need to have information to do that. So when I saw that we didn't have any sites here, it was very important to me that we did, and to have a place where folks could go every week. And I was also able to provide like PPE. So like Home State Health, I was able to get them to donate hand sanitizers. I was able to order masks, gloves, and we'd have these little PPE bags that we could hand out as well. And, as this is a time when there was a shortage of those. So these are folks, who are just, trying to DIY and make their own. So, being able to provide that resource to the community was, definitely one of the highlights of my legislative career.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you get elected as state rep. You serve 4 years. Now you're in the Senate. Let me ask you, what's one thing you wish you had known before you began your political career? So now that you're in it, what's that one thing that you like, man, I wish I'd have known this before?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I'll tell you, I think it's something we see on our national politics as well. And I don't know how we change it. It's very hostile from both sides of the party. And I think the media plays a big role in it as well. Like me and a lot of the Republican senators who, I ideologically, like we're on different ends of the spectrum, but we actually have like a very cordial relationship, a lot of mutual respect for one another. We stick by our words, and I can honestly say that for the almost far majority of folks, everyone's trying to do the right thing, what they think is right. But, these days, and, you looking at the news and stuff, you'd think we all hate each other. Yeah. The other thing too, though, is, they like to focus on some of the most kind of controversial issues that get the most play. But, honestly, most of the legislation that passed through both chambers has bipartisan support. Someone once told me that reporters don't write stories about planes that land. But, the far majority of the legislation we work on, we'll do our little tweaks, our amendments, but you've got both Democrats and Republicans voting in favor of it. It's just those few controversial issues that we're never going to agree on that, you'd think that we hate each other. And then the other aspect of that as well, there just seems to be this real pressure to just kind of tear folks down and kind of incite those polarizations, those differences between each other and other parties when, it's important for us to step back and realize, it's Democrat, Republican, we're all here trying to do the right thing. Why can't we have a conversation about it? So that's one thing I wish I would have known, how difficult that would be to overcome.
And you and Senator Brian Williams are in a unique position because you are two of the only African-American males in the Senate right now currently. Is that correct?
That's right. We're the only males. Yep.
Yeah. So how is it being the only two African American males? Males, because when you think about it, it's a heavy load because you essentially are representing the black men in the state of Missouri. You and Brian Williams, y'all have a heavy load doing that, man, and I know you all have support with the black women that are up there. But just kind of talk about how you and Brian kind of work together, being the only African-American males in the Senate in the whole state of Missouri.
Right. Well, and I'm very fortunate and to have Brian up there. You know, he's a great ally. We work very well together and make a good team. And my last 2 years in the House before I got up there, he was for those 2 years carrying the torch on his own. So I'm definitely glad that I've got him up there that we can bounce ideas off of and then work together. If we need a filibuster to try to kill something, just having another person who I know is gonna have a similar background and understand what. Here's why this is terrible. Here's why this particularly affects Black men, and having someone else who can back me up as well and say, yeah, you know what, and vice versa, me back him up. Like this has to go. We've got to change this. We've got to fix this. So I'm lucky. And as you said, the Black women, Senator Carla May, Senator Barbara Washington, Senator Angela Mosley, have been phenomenal in being lockstep with us and protecting Black women as well. So we are the Senate Black Caucus. We function very well together. We make an amazing team, and we're half the Democratic caucus.
And that's very important, man. I know Senator Brian Williams got a monumental bill across the finish line with reform with
the chokeholds?
The chokeholds, yeah. So, and I know you guys backed them up on that when getting that across the finish line, and that speaks volumes because I know it took teamwork. I know Brian. I know he worked very hard, but I know he couldn't, do that on his own. And so it's just good to know that we have representatives and representation on the highest level of government in our state. So that's very, very, very important. Now, let me ask you, what's been your biggest challenge since being elected? And then follow up with that, what did you actually learn from that big challenge? So kind of talk to what has been the biggest challenge since being an elected official? Because I think when you got elected, you were 20?
What was that? It would have been like 28, I think.
Yeah. So
it would have been about 5 years ago.
You was a young man that has experienced a lot because you went and did your education and got some experience in some real world experiences.
Sure.
But you jumped right into politics. Still as a young man. So kind of talk about what your biggest challenge was, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, another great question. Biggest challenge, first thing that comes to mind would just be operating in a super minority. So unlike other states, Democrats were literally outnumbered about 3-1. So, you've got 10 Democrats in the Senate to 24 Republicans, and, similar numbers. I think we're at 48 and 17 in the House now. So, being able, when you're just outnumbered and you don't have a Democratic governor as well. Previously, with Nixon, he could veto certain things and they would need Democratic support, or they could try to override a gubernatorial veto. But now that they control the majority of the executive offices and have super majorities in both chambers, it makes it very hard to negotiate and leverage things. I will say that the best way I've been able to overcome it has been in the Senate, and that's why I really love this new position so much. The rules of the two chambers are very different, so it's not just like it's not like you're just merely representing more people in the Senate chamber. The rules are completely different than how they function in the House, and there's a great deal of respect for the institution. You'll find members of both parties. And that was something I saw very early on when I was elected to the Senate, when we were debating rule changes. You had a majority of Democrats explaining why a certain rule change would be bad, that the pro tem was proposing, and then Republicans ending up signing with the minority floor leader on that. And something like that would never happen in the House. And a lot of that too, though, some of those rules deals with, for example, like if you're trying to get recognized, they have to call on you. And that's like when they call you, it's like you've got the football. They don't time your debate. You can go as long as you want. In the House, they could just not call on you if they don't want to. They can limit your debate. They can move on. Use a procedural motion called the previous question to just end debate, force a vote. Really, in the Senate, that's very extraordinary and rare. So for the most part, if you've got the floor, it's like you're holding the football.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So you've been up there. You gotta go back and forth. every week. Sometimes you got to stay longer than they say you're gonna stay. How do you what do you do personally outside of politics to kind of get your mind away from it a little bit? Let us in on what Steve does for fun, or what do you do? Like, kind of take us through a routine that you go through that kind of gets your mind away from the whole Jeff City atmosphere.
Sure. Well, I gotta say, my godbrother got married this past weekend, so it was really nice. He was a wedding. It was in Florida, so I was able to get out of town for a few days, catch up with him and some other friends I hadn't seen in a while. So just I love catching up with friends. Going out doing traveling when I can. I like to work out. So in the mornings or in the evenings, when I'm Jeff City, I kind of like have my own routine, getting into the gym before we get started. And that kind of helps me clear my head and just be ready to take things on going forward. And then reading, and it just depends on kind of what I've got at the moment. I'm always looking for good recommendations, whether it's science fiction or biographies, things like that. So, just kind of simple things like that.
That's what's the simple guy.
Yeah, simple man, spending time with my family.
Yeah, that's good, man. Well, we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back. You're tuned in to the Politics Podcast. We're joined with Senator Steve Roberts. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's your favorite Ladybug, and you're tuned into the hottest show in the Lou, the Politics Podcast, your home for St. Louis politics.
You better ask somebody.
This is Chloe with Vassals, Comfort Shoes, and Custom Insoles, your diabetic shoe supplier in St. Louis. You're listening to the hottest show in the Lou, the Politics Podcast, your home for St. Louis politics.
This is the Hip Hop Gardener from Blackberry Landscaping. And when I'm ever listening to an app or podcast shows, I'm listening to the hottest show in the Lou, the Politics Podcast, your home for St. Louis politics.
You better ask somebody.
You're tuned in to the Politics Podcast, your home for St. Louis politics. All right, we are back. We got my man Steve Roberts in the building. We talking about Jeff City, service, and all of those good things. Welcome back, Steve.
Glad to be back.
So we were for you all to just tuning in. We're joined by Senator Steve Roberts of the what's your district again?
Fifth district.
The fifth district. And Senator Steve Roberts is one of two of the only African American males serving in the Senate in Missouri. I know y'all not surprised by that number, but we'll talk about that some other day. So Steve, with you being such a young man, I know you're somewhat of an inspiration to other young folks around that aspire to assume leadership roles. What advice would you give someone if someone was to call you? If let's say little Terry called you and said, "Hey, Senator Steve, I want to run for political office."
Okay.
What advice would you give little Terry?
Honestly, I probably tell Terry, figure out, develop some life experience first. What are you passionate about? And that gives you, a background for things to focus on in the legislature. So for me, from my law school experiences, from serving our community as a prosecutor, and that's really why I joined the prosecutor's office. I really wanted to see the real issues facing our community and kind of peek behind the curtain, because our prosecutors really have a unique power. You're deciding, all right, am I going to charge this case? Am I going to, issue this against this person? Am I going to try to take away their liberty? And you're really able to kind of look at all the facts and circumstances in a way that our public defenders aren't, because they just can't make those types of charging decisions. So for me, when I'm advocating for or against different criminal justice policies, folks that affect, like juveniles, their right to counsel, things like that, legislation I worked on in the Senate, I speak from a position of credibility and influence because I can talk about my life story, things that I personally witnessed or things that I've seen. So I'd tell little Terry, well, why do you want to run? What are you passionate about it? Can you get some experiences in that area? And then that's the other thing too, though, politics will always be there. If there's something else you wanted to pursue, if you're interested in being in, learning a trade or being an architect, whatever, a lawyer, whatever that thing is, then you're kind of coming in from that work experience, because there's always legislation that's going to could affect your industry. And that's one of the things I really love about my job. I've got experts on both sides. So a lot, I'll have the Missouri trial lawyers talking to me, and then the, insurance companies coming as well. And, I've got the experts on both these issues coming to me, and then I get to make a decision on where I'm going to be at it. So I tell little Terry, find what you're passionate about, learn as much about that as you can, get your, as many life experiences as you can. Politics will be there for you. And I know you're going to do a great job.
So Steve, what are some of the best resources that has helped you along your way in politics? Like, kind of talk about some resources that has helped you be successful and get understanding on a lot of things. Kind of talk to us about what those are.
Yeah, well, I'm really fortunate. I've got a great staff. My director of constituent services, give a shout out, Timothy Griffin. My chief of staff, another lawyer, Michael Weaver. They joined the team with me in the Senate, have just been fantastic, and they understand my priorities. Why we're there and why we do what we do. A huge part of that, as I told you earlier, was constituent services. So making sure that when folks contact our office, if we're not able to help them, putting them with the right people who can. I got to tell you, one of the biggest thing, and we've maintained a binder of this now, would be regarding like Department of Revenue. Mm-hmm. So a lot of folks, when the pandemic broke out, they went on unemployment, and a lot of bus drivers, people, folks like that. There's a provision where, if you're expected to return, you might not be eligible, but you've got these folks who their supervisors saying, no, you're eligible for this unemployment. You're right. You need to apply to it, because we don't know when you're going to come back, because we don't know how long this pandemic's going to be. So you've got folks who are unemployed taking this unemployment, and then they're getting these letters from the Department of Revenue. They're getting liens put on their houses saying, actually, you've got to pay us all this money back. And for some of these folks, tens of thousands of dollars. There's no way they could possibly pay that back. And we're dealing with a pandemic. So, I was on the committee, Government Accountability and Fiscal Oversight, where we pulled the director in to say, what are you all doing? You said you're going to stop sending folks these letters. These are people who applied in good faith and don't have a way to pay this back. Like, it's not right what you're doing. So, for me to be able to, take down every person's information and get back to them, say, hey, look, here's what we're doing. Or, there's a process. So there's a way to appeal. So what we did is we contacted our liaison with there, and then we started helping folks actually fill out their appeals, challenging what the Department of Labor is saying. So, you're getting this demand letter saying, you owe $10,000, they contact us and say, all right, well, here's how you appeal it. We walk them through the process, we'll submit it and everything, and then we can follow up with them as well. So, my staff, because man, I could, like I said, I have a binder full of these, I would not be able to keep up with all of it on my own. And then our liaisons, and like you were talking about earlier, being able, just as a role as elected officials, being able to, be able to put folks in contact with the right people. Yeah. For all of these executive agencies, we have a legislative liaison who we contact and say, look, with Department of Corrections, whether it be DOR, Department of Labor, there's someone who, if we call, they're going to get back to us. And, having your senator reach out on behalf of a constituent and say, look, I'm watching this. This is important to me. What's going on here? And just being able to kind of run that down for folks has been huge. So I'd say the different department liaisons, our staff, and our Senate staff clerk as well. I mean, it's a great team. I mean, it's really a ship. There's a lot of folks doing things. So legislative research, if I've got an idea, or if I've seen a piece of legislation that's worthwhile in another state that I want to incorporate, having our bipartisan Senate staff kind of help me achieve my goal is a huge asset.
So, like in the sports world, athletes, they have somebody who they kind of emulate their game after. In politics, who would you say you kind of have taken influence from and kind of, and I know you're your own guy, got your own swag, do your own thing, you know, you're your own person, but kind of share with us who's that politician that you kind of emulate, you know, your style of leadership from.
Sure. I'd say Congressman Lacy Clay was a great influence and impact on me. You know, his priorities and then some of his big wins, like, for example, the NGA side, which is in the 5th senatorial district. I mean, I remember when they were trying to get that out of the state of Missouri. That's like one of the largest military expenditures. I think it's almost $2 billion they're doing to put that in our region. Yeah. You know, him, you know, kind of understanding, all right, you know, this is important to the district. This is what we need to do, you know, being able to kind of bring back real wins for us. So he's the first person who comes to mind.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Lacy Clay, a good man. I had a lot of dealings with him coming up in politics myself and his dad. So,
oh yeah. And his father was just a pioneer.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I love his quote. What was it? No permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. And that's something that just always resonated with me as a politician. Like, you know, it's focusing on the goal, serving the community, you know, working with whatever side of the other, whoever you need to do that. But those permanent interests, that's what you need to focus on to accomplish those goals. So, you know, that's something that's kind of always in the back of my mind as I serve.
So a lot of people in the public have different myths about positions and power and things we can do. What's one myth of being a senator that you would like to clear up to whoever who might have a myth about being a senator? Has there been any myths that you heard out there that you kind of want to clear up? Because, you know, I know serving as a city councilman, man, I mean, people think we the senator, the governor, the mayor, everything. So what's that one common myth that you kind of hear as a senator that you kind of would like to clear up and let everybody know, yeah, that's a myth?
Oh man, let me think. Which one? You know, I think a lot of folks just imagine, like, you know, politicians were making all this money and we're all corrupt and, you know, we're all in on the take, where it's like, no, not really. You can look up our salaries. Right. You know, the folks who are doing this for the stress, the hours we put in, I mean, it's less than minimum wage. I mean, it's, you know, at least for us in the Senate, they say it's a part-time job, but I mean, we're doing stuff all the time. All the time. Probably follow, you know, we've got these filibusters that go to 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. We're up all night just to wake up early and do it again. So, you know, it's, you know, folks are doing this because it's a calling. It's a passion for the most part. I'm not gonna say everyone, but for, you know, basically everybody I work with, you know, they could be doing other things, you know, they could, you know, focused on making money, starting their businesses, taking care of their families. And I think the other things folks don't recognize is what a sacrifice it is, you know, especially at the state level. You know, I've got friends who've in the House and in the Senate who've got young kids who had babies when they're serving in the legislature. And, you know, the impact of that on a family, you know, you've got to be in Jeff City Monday through Thursday. I mean, you've got to have a spouse who's going to be supportive of that, of you going to fight for the people, where you're sacrificing certain moments, memories, times you're missing out with your family. So, you know, I like the folks to really understand that, you know, for me, it's a privilege. It's an honor to serve. It's the best job I've ever had. But, you know, just to understand like the sacrifice in it, and that, you know, for everyone up there is really trying to do their part to do the right thing. We might have different ways of going about that, but just to take the second to look back and see that, you know, we're all just people.
And so I got to ask you my famous question. I ask all my guests that comes on here. I even asked my mom this. So my mom is the mayor of Jennings, and she was my first guest actually when I first started the show. So I had to start the show with my mom. But
of course,
it's a question that I ask everybody that comes on here. And it's always interesting to hear everyone's answers. So the question is, in 5 words, tell me and tell the audience what good governance looks like to you in 5 words.
Oh man, that's tough. Okay, good governance in 5 words. Okay, I got it in 3.
Okay.
Having the right leadership.
Oh.
You know, whatever the situation. I've worked under good leaders. I've worked under bad leaders. I've worked under indifferent leaders, hateful people. You know, I've seen the gambit from my also experiences to my professional career, and who your leadership is really will shape the trajectory of whatever department, what other caucus you're in. You know, I'm really glad our Senate minority leader, JJ Rizzo out of Kansas City, he's been doing a fantastic job of guiding us, you know, operating in a super minority. So, you know, you need to have the right people at the helm, to have the vision, to take that risk, to say, all right, you know what, whether this succeeds or fails, like it's on me. Here's the direction I want the team to go in. And, you know, you got to have the right leaders as well, you know, folks who are willing to put the group's interests ahead of their own. You know, when I was chairman of the Black Caucus in the House, you know, my focus shifted from, all right, let me get my bills done, to, all right, I've got 20 members. I need to make sure that their bills are moving forward, that they're getting hearings. It became all about them, the group, and the caucus. And I'm really proud, you know, when I was chairman, we had more Black Caucus bills move than I think any other legislature, any term that I've been there, and from what I've heard, like over the last 10 years. So, you know, being able to set up weekly meetings with the speaker's office, meetings with the governor's office, you know, being able to kind of start that and help folks get their priorities met. So I think good governance starts with the right leadership.
Hey, leadership matters, brother. I mean, you can see, I served on a Jennings school board for 10 years, just recently retired, and I'm excited about it. But one thing I learned serving on the school board is it starts at the top, man. When I first got on the board, I mean, we wasn't doing so hot, but Jennings is the school district that's talked about. You know, we've been up to the Capitol quite a few times, being recognized. And when we changed the leadership in our district, that's when you saw a huge difference, man. You know, I had an interview a few weeks ago with a former Representative Tommy Pearson, and that was one thing that we talked about. You know, if we're going to move St. Louis, if we're going to move Missouri forward, St. Louis first, but Missouri, period, we have to get out of the habit of electing second string leaders. And I think we we do a horrible job. It's like a popularity contest versus the most qualified, the person is going to get the job done. And at the end of the day, you know, you have to win the election to do all those things that you set out to do. But as a community, as an electorate, we have to stop sending our second streams into the game and start elevating our starters. So
Sure.
Yeah. So let me ask you before we get out of here, because we're coming down to the end of the show shortly. But what's one thing you hope to accomplish, man, before leaving the Senate? I know you served in the House for 4 years, but what's that one burning thing that you said, you know, this is what I want to accomplish before I leave? What's that thing? It could be 2 things, you know. Share with us.
No, I'd be glad to, and it's more of a more of a theme. You know, it deals with getting, you know, curbing our incarceration rate, and just, you know, having folks who've made a mistake get that second chance. So, you know, we've had some great successes. You know, a piece of legislation I sponsored dealt with medication-assisted treatment. So basically what happens is the Department of Corrections estimates that about 25 to 50% of their inmates struggle with substance abuse problems. But previously, they were limited on the types of treatment and medications that they could use to help folks, like this kind of one-size-fits-all approach, which really doesn't work. So what my bill does is it requires them to use medication-assisted treatment in a more tailored way, so you can, you know, get the right treatment for the person and all the cascading effects after that. And, you know, once you're able to have that person, you know, with their medication assisted treatment, solve that substance abuse problem, all those other issues, them stealing or doing other things to feed that addiction, being able to then hold a steady job, stuff like that. Legislation I've worked on for the Child's Right to Counsel, making sure that kids aren't unwillingly waiving their right to counsel, pleading guilty to something that they shouldn't be pleading guilty to. So for me, it's just really my passion why I ran for office is those criminal justice reform issues, decriminalizing possession cases, things like that. As you know, once you have a felony conviction on your record, you can legally discriminate against in your employment, your housing. They can straight up say you can't stay here because you're a felon. When you're on probation, losing the right to vote, things like that. So there's countless things that can be done. So it's a long way, but each session, if I can just keep moving the ball forward, like the medication assisted treatment, Child's Right to Counsel, like those are victories for me. So it's one of those things where, if I'm able to get some of those reforms done each session, then that's successful. Or in the alternative, stopping bad things. A lot of it is defense. Just this past year, there was some legislation where they were trying to increase the amount that the police could hold you from 24 to 48 hours. So nearly doubling it. And their argument is, well, if it's a serious crime or if it's criminal or something, we just want to, be able to hold them for a longer time to make more, to consider whether we need to issue these charges or not. Well, since we've been a state, 24 hours has worked out fine. We've got more technology, things like that. Why would you need to hold someone for more? And really, my concern is, you've got a kid who's scared. They can hold him now from 1 day, but to 2 days now, his parents don't know where he's at. He doesn't know what's going on, and they're just keeping him confined. My concern is, you've got that innocent person who says something maybe they shouldn't have, or scared, or admits to something that they didn't do just because they want to go home and see their parents. So, we were able to stop that this year. So being able to stop bad legislation is just as important.
And so we talked earlier about how it's difficult in Jeff City because the Democrats in the super duper minority. In your opinion, and I know you served in leadership as the Black Caucus chair. What do you think Democrats need to do in Missouri to win back some of those seats that we used to previously have? I know redistricting's coming up, but do you think the Democratic message needs to get stronger? Like, what do you think we need to do as a party to basically get stronger in the state? Because obviously in St. Louis and Kansas City, we're strong. Democrats control the city, the county, all of those different positions. But and right now we have a nice Democrat majority on a national level as well. But what do you think Democrats need to do in Missouri to kind of win back those seats, or at least bring it a little more closer than what it is? I know we flipped maybe 1 or 2 seats in the House. But yeah, kind of talk in your opinion,
Yeah. And that's the multi-million-dollar question. In my opinion, what it comes down to is we need to find candidates who are very reflective of those districts. The party can't try to, go to someone's door and drag them to where they're at. You got to meet people where they are. You're not going to convince someone to say, hey, look, we're a Democratic Party. Here's where we are. Like, what, you don't agree with us, but you need to feel how we feel about this. We need to meet people where they're at. We need to find candidates who really, are true to our democratic values, but understand their local communities and are able to meet people where they're at, Yeah. So I think we've got to vet candidates who are just, representative of their districts. And, for example, guns is a big issue, and in the city of St. Louis, we want more restrictive gun rights, things like that. I filed legislation which would do a carve out for the city of St. Louis. So if you wanted to carry a concealed weapon or open carry weapon, you had to have a permit. It used to be if you wanted to concealed carry a weapon, you had to you had to go through the training, get a CCW permanent.
Right.
They got changed that with constitutional carry. Well, if you're a more rural Democrat and, guns are just, foundational to that community, and you're trying to say, well, you know what, you need to be supportive of, starting these new gun registration programs. Well, that candidate probably is not going to get elected because that is such a passionate issue for that district. So,
Right.
the party needs to recognize, there are certain issues where there's single issues for voters. So we need to have candidates who understand that in these districts where where it's close, and then having someone who understands that.
And we of course we have the first ever African American chairman of the state Democratic Party, Michael Butler.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a committee man as well, and so I've been working closely with the state party now and the county. So all of the elected Democrats in Jeff City, have you guys kind of met with the party chair and kind of talked over, moving forward, how things are going to go, and new strategies or things of that sort? Has the party chairman kind of met with the delegation up there in Jeff City to kind of talk through those things? Because I know he served as a state rep, so he kind of knows the temperature and the climate up there. But has there been any effort from the party to kind of bring all of this together and strategize on how we could compete in the state of Missouri?
Sure. So Michael's a dear friend, and we served together in the House of Representatives, and we, made a great team, just trying to, basically fight an uphill battle against, as you pointed out, a super majority of Republicans. We haven't met yet since session ended. I think that's really just because it's been less than a month since session ended, and a lot of reps and senators are traveling, or just you just need to decompress, especially those after all the stress. And now there's talk of us going up for a special, so I'm sure we'll get together soon. But I think the party, and I'm sure all the senators are like, hey, we need a month to just get our lives back together after everything. So it's no surprise that we haven't met yet, but I'm sure we will this summer.
That's what's up, man. Well, Mike, man, I mean, I called you Mike. Steve, Mike is your cousin, right?
Right.
Yeah, Mike, your cousin. Well, Steve, man, I really appreciate you joining in the show, man, and hope to have you back soon. Because you just getting started, man, and I know you got some other things going on, and so I can't wait to bring you back and hear what you have going on, man. Where can the listening audience find you? And if you have any other final words, go ahead and give your final words and let the listening audience know where they can contact you via social media, website, and all those different things.
Yeah, no, I'd be glad to. Well, if you want to see anything on the bills that I've sponsored or anything like that, you can go to my Senate page, which is just it's senate.mo.gov/Roberts. So senate.mo.gov/Roberts. That's got a little summary on kind of me, my story, and it talks about the bills that I've sponsored, co-sponsored, the different committees I serve on, things like that. My handle on Twitter is Roberts for STL. So, just Steven, or, twitter.com/Roberts for FORSTL. And then my Facebook, kind of same thing. So I'm pretty easy to find on social media and everything. My email, though, if you want to reach out to me directly, it's steve.roberts@senate.mo.gov. And again, that's all on my Senate website as well. So, we're easy to get a hold of. My number's on there as well. Call us anytime.
And we'll have all of that in the description of the video, so everyone could get to Senator Steve Roberts. We appreciate you tuning in this week. I enjoyed you, Steve. I appreciate you sharing your story, sharing what you got going on. And hopefully we see you back at the Politics Podcast. And for my listening audience, don't forget, you can catch us on Podbean, 88.1 The Truth Internet Radio, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Amazon Music, Spotify, and of course, right here on YouTube and Facebook Live every Sunday at 6 p.m. We appreciate you. Steve, thanks again. And we will see you all next week. We have interesting guests coming in next week. Be on the lookout for the advertisement. We got another young man coming on. Y'all see this reoccurring theme, getting the young folks involved. But we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. The Politics Podcast, your home for St. Louis politics.